Hey everyone, Tactics here with my second last video in my Mythic Sanctum of Domination Tank Tips series, covering the three bosses leading up to Sylvanas with Guardian of the first ones, Fatescribe, and Kel'Thuzad. As with the other videos in this series, I'll be going through these bosses from a tank's perspective, discussing things like boss positioning, how to handle certain tank mechanics or swaps, and just providing a few tips and tricks that will hopefully make these fights easier for both yourself and your raid group. Remember, if you found something useful, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it. And let's begin with Guardian of the first ones. Now, the first thing you're going to see here is boss positioning, and that's going to be a little bit different, or a little bit more important on Mythic. We position this boss right next to a pylon, so the boss's left side, as you can see, is beside the pylon, and that's because on Mythic you want these bombs going out here to go on the pylon. So this makes it so that you don't have to run as far. Now, that square you see just to the right of the boss is the immunity stack, and then we have the current active tank just in front of the boss. And basically how we handle the tank combo on Mythic, I'll discuss the immunities in a second here, but basically, so the first tank has the Sunder, he drags the Obliterate on top, the other tank taunts, drags the Obliterate on top, and then takes the Sunder back and into the primary tank position. So that's how we handle that on Mythic, and maybe different from what you do on Heroic or Normal, but that's how we do it on Mythic. And then going back to the immunities, so you see we have a list of immunities over on the left side here. You don't need immunities. You see here on Soak 2 we have a non-immunity, but there's 2 people covering it. But basically you have to have 4 people in the Soak on Mythic, otherwise the boss will lose energy and that will mess up all of your timings. So we assigned 3 immunities, or in this case 4 people, with 1 non-immunity going into the first Obliterate and 1 non-immunity going into the second Obliterate. But ideally you have 3 immunities set for each different Obliterate Soak, and they can, because it's an immunity, they can take both Obliterates in the Soak set. So that's why you just have the 3 names plus the tank equals 4. You will still want to pop a major defensive for this though, because you are going to be taking just over 200,000 physical damage from the Obliterate hit, as well as like just under 100,000 magic damage. So you do still want some big form of defensive for that first. Or for here, see, I'm taking Survival Instincts and Bark Skin together. The first one, I believe it was Survival Instincts and the Blood Spattered Scale. So you still want some pretty major defensives up for these moments, because it's still a ton of damage, and that's not even counting the Sunder hit itself, which is like over 150k as well. In terms of swapping outside of that timing, because obviously you need to swap halfway through the tank combo, the active tank can be whoever. You see we swap here partway through, only because I'm a Guardian Druid. I use a lot of my major defensives to cover those Obliterates, and my other tank is a Brewmaster who has a lot of the shorter stuff available and just always ready to go. And so him tanking the boss also allows me to cat weave, and so whenever possible he would be tanking the boss, I would be cat weaving, and that would provide both higher damage uptime for our group overall, because I can do more damage when I'm cat weaving, and also he was just a lot safer in general because he had a lot more available to use outside of those Obliterate timings. So there's really no set rules here. It's just going to depend on, if you need taunt off for cooldown recovery, you can do that whenever. It doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really matter who's taking the first Obliterate or who's taking the second, as long as it gets done correctly. But that is the entire fight, really. It just goes through the entire fight. It's a one-phase fight, as I'm sure you all are aware of, and that is the whole thing there. Nothing really changes. That is that. Let's move on to Fatescribe. So in phase, Fatescribe, pretty simple. The only thing you want to worry about here is boss positioning and detonation positioning. So you see we pull the boss right at the beginning to the front of the room here. And waiting for that detonation to go off, which is Invoke Destiny. And what we do basically is we have the first one go to the center of the room. And this is true for both phase 1 and phase 2. So this first detonation is going to go to the center of the room. It detonates. We wait for the beams to come out, and then again, true for phase 1 and phase 2. We dodge the beam first. We keep that ad slowed the entire time. As soon as these beams go, we go to the center of the room. And this is because the center of the room in general, positioning wise, is better for everyone to get to these Grim Portent soaks. So we go to the center of the room, cleave this ad, we speed boost for the Grim Portent Soaks. And as you saw there, I'll rewind a second. So these orbs are one of the few things in this phase that can kill people that aren't paying attention. So as a tank here, you see I'm actually running into a lot of these orbs and eating them when I already have a defensive up anyways to handle the Fatescribe initial hits. And so that's a thing you can do here, right? You're not going to be taking too much extra damage by eating those in a defensive, and even outside of a defensive, they're not too bothersome to a tank. So if you can eat a few, it might save a DPS or healer's life. Yeah, so first Invoke Destiny to the center. Second Invoke Destiny is going over towards the area where we want the boss in the intermission, or where we're going to tank in the intermission. So over to this corner. We stop on the boss after 72.5 because he'll stop doing spells for a bit there. They're on that ad over in the corner. They're killing it. As soon as this ad dies, we'll start doing, or we'll finish off these little guys and then transition to the boss at 70.5%. As you see here, it's basically just the dots and the Brewmaster pushing the boss. Boss will push, and then we get into the intermission. And so this is why we're in this corner. So that skull marker is where the general range stack is, and X is where the general melee are. So every phase we want to end over here. So that's the end of phase 1. We want to be over in this area, and the end of phase 2. And that is for the LOSing of the big ads in this phase, because on Mythic they're uninterruptible. So you either have to outrange them or LOS them. Now what we have here is we have the skull marker, which is where range are going to end up after this puddle passes, because of course if you stand in these puddles you will just die. Then we have the X marker over here. You can't quite see it, but that's going to be where we're tanking so that you can LOS. For the tanking situation, basically one tank in the first phase is going to get a marker, and we always assign them to the center. This is a weak aura that does this. And then in the second phase, if you will know already going into the phase who's going to be the one going into this the runes and who's not, because it's always the other tank. You'll never get both phases as a tank. So I'm getting the phase this time. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about tanking the ads in the next phase. So we boost out, get to the center, and basically number one thing here, these two ads are kind of hard to group up. So if you're the center tank, really, I recommend not hitting them if you can. Just avoid them entirely. Don't hit them. And try your best to range them a little bit. I think I did a pretty poor job. No, I just barely did. Oops, sorry. When you're going out, because again, you want to dodge the, I believe it's 20, it might be 25-yard range of this Despair cast. So just be very, very careful when you're going out. You see, my rune's over here, but if I'd gone to my rune, I would have been hit by that guy's cast. So I come out here, wait, we do a countdown to step on the runes. We all step on the runes at the same time. And again, you can see here, I'm eating orbs. Not to, not until I die, but I'm eating orbs generally, occasionally, just to make it a little bit easier. You'll see I'll run through. Okay, apparently I'm dodging orbs here. We also had a paladin over here eating orbs as well. And then, we just wait for everyone to do their orbs here, or their runes rather. And this is a situation in the intermissions where you can go in one direction no matter what. That's what we're doing here. And then phase 2 starts. So phase 2, we start over where we began the intermission. And it's going to be very similar to phase 1 in terms of the boss positioning and the timings of everything. So the first invoke goes to the center of the room. You then wait until the beams come out, and then you go meet the ad in the center of the room, because Grim Portent Soaks are going to be coming out just after that. So you see here, goes out to the center, drops off his bomb, and then the beams come out, and then we'll go to the ad after the fact. Then we have Grim Portent. So from here is where things get a little bit different. So we just look at where these orbs, the bombs are, right? We see where the players drop them. And we call a spot. I believe we probably call to go over this way by the entrance. And that's where the other tank takes the boss when this invoke comes out, and I go away because this is a part where we're going to ignore this tank ad. So I'm going to be kiting this tank ad until we push the boss below 42.5%. So I'm taking this back to where we began. He's going to take that boss in a second here. over by the entrance probably. Yeah, there he goes. And that's to give us more space for these bombs, right? We're able to get to the edge and get on the edge of these beams, and now we're just focusing on dodging this next set of beams because the boss is now below 42.5. So if we dodge this one set of beams, we're not going to get the third set, and then we pump the ad there. And again, we're trying to get the ad dead over here, so I bring it back towards the X and the skull because this is where we want to end up at the end of the phase for the second intermission. So see there, we'll just clean up those ads. I believe I had to battle over someone, right? Yeah. Finish up these ads, and then we'll finish up the boss as well. Bring the boss in, cleave him down. And then we go back to the intermission, and you'll see the ad set of the intermission here. So, same deal, range are going to Skullish. I notice I saved Berserker the entire fight. I never used it because Berserk is very, very good for helping you both group these ads up and then defensively when you pick up these ads. I just didn't use it the entire fight because there's no reason to, because I wanted to save it specifically to deal with these ads. Because again, grouping can be a bit of a problem. Grouping is a bit of a problem. I'm spamming Moonfire. I taunted immediately, and then they start coming close. And I'll pop Berserk and then put them on the spot. I want to put them just on the side here. You see, right on the side of this corner, because this corner here is what we're using to LOS. You need to watch this puddle though. Start inching away from it, inching away from that puddle. They both cast Despair. Then you hide in this corner and you dodge and you run around this puddle. That puddle is very, very scary. This puddle has killed multiple people many times. If you find your melee are dying to this puddle, you can just have them, instead of LOSing the first Despair, just completely outrange it. We did that a few times. You can see a bunch of our melee are actually just jumping out to 25 plus yards to avoid the Despair instead of using this LOS spot if they're not sure about it. So you can do either. Both will work. And then you just want to make sure that you cleave these ads down. The one thing is we got lucky here. The Despairs are lined up. The Despairs can be slightly staggered by like a couple seconds. So if that is the case, as the tank, you'll want to eat the first one if you have to eat one, just so to make sure that the second one can be LOS'd by everyone, if that makes sense. So you'll stay here until the second one begins casting and then LOS. If that means you get hit, it means you get hit. It is what it is. As a tank, you can pretty easily survive some stacks, so it's not a big deal. Now, phase 3, a little bit different here. So the timings are completely different. Invokes are different. You can see here, right? Invoke goes out after the beams in phase 3, so he goes out to the entrance. And then we have the actual. There's no Grim Portent in this phase. It's just the rings. So from here, we go towards the entrance where there's no bombs, right? All the bombs are around where we just were. There's one bomb here, so you go a little bit past this off of the circle because they're doing their beams, right? So that you don't want to get cut by the cutter beams on Mythic. And so we go around them. Everyone else who's not doing these is killing this shade. And then we're on the boss. Or now, once the shade's dead, we can just cleave down these ads while they're all doing their stuff in the middle of the room here. And then this invoke is a little bit scary. I save my blink specifically for it, so bombs just spread out here. And then I have my invoke now. I shouldn't have touched that cutter beam. Basically, I blink across the room and get as far away as possible. And that is really the only main difference here. You will want to focus that one down as well, just by the way. If you're doing the burn strat, you're doing the burn strat. We are 5 healing, yeah, so we're not doing the burn strat here. We didn't quite have the DPS, I don't believe. Would have been very, very close, but yeah. That is Fatescribe. So all 3 phases, they're basically, there's slight variations from phase 2 to phase 3, but phase 1 and phase 2 are very, very similar. And the intermissions, you're going to have one of 2 rolls, and you will always get the opposite roll for the second intermission that you did from the first, so you're never going to get both runics in the first intermission, second intermission. So be prepared to do everything. And really, those intermission mobs, they hurt a lot. So save defensives for sure to deal with these guys, right? I saved Berserk the entire fight to be able to deal with these monstrosities. So you will want to make sure you're using big defensives here because they do hurt a lot, way more than any other difficulty. And just don't be surprised by that. See, look, I'm Iron Barked here. I'm in Berserk. I'm going to be popping Survival Instincts and Barskin eventually, probably as well, like after this area. Right, like This is extremely scary as a tank. This is the only scary part of the entire fight as a tank, right? Nothing else in this entire fight hits hard at all besides these ads, so make sure 100% you are saving stuff to deal with them. And that leaves us with Kel'Thuzad. Alright, this is post the adjustments to him, the health pools, the spike damage nerf, and then the damage added to the Ice Storm. So this is going to be up to date on that kind of stuff. Pretty boring as a tank for the most part in phase, right? The only main difference from normal to heroic, or from heroic to mythic, is we don't bring him around the room to cleave. Instead, we have people assigned to go to each of the various quadrants, each of the various ads, and we kind of tank him in the middle as like a home base. Because you see here, we have silent puddles going in a line. Basically, silent puddles, the boss, and the soak, and then the ice spikes are in a line down the middle of the room. And we just kind of keep the boss in the middle as like a home base for like range to stand, and the one tank so that we can soak those, what's it called? The Frost Blast. There it is. See there, we have a bunch of rangers in the center of the room. Melee are going to their assigned areas, killing these tank ads, and there's not much to it. Just be careful, as you see here. Tanks can get fixated by these devoted, so we have them CC'd pretty far back, so it's not a problem. But like if you have a tank spirit here and the devoted are all around, just be very, very careful, because the devoted will one-shot you with this debuff. So just be aware of that. Make sure you're avoiding those devoted if you are fixated by them. Yes, really straightforward phase for tanking. Not too much going on here. Just a one taunt off like heroic, the exact same. Intermission is a little different. There's 3 banshees and 2 of the abominations, and basically what we do here is we group them up ASAP, try and maximize cleave damage, and we just kind of move slowly across the banshees. When they start getting low, we'll move off of the banshees so that they don't die, because we don't want these ads to die too soon. You see this timer here, 21 seconds is how long we have left, and the downstairs group is also kind of holding DPS, so that's the coordination. When they get low enough, they call, and then we start killing stuff, and we call, okay, you can kill downstairs. Number one thing though, A-bombs have to be dead. If A-bombs are not dead, they will one-shot your tank. Maybe if your tank has a super big defensive up, they will 2-shot your tank. But A-bombs 100% need to be dead before the phase transition. And ideally all of the ads are dead before the phase transition. As you saw there, that was a pretty clean transition by us. It takes a bunch of coordination. You need to be communicating upstairs. Downstairs you need to be communicating. And that weak aura was very, very helpful for us. Just keep track of everything. Spikes, we're still doing the exact same thing, by the way. We're just blasting spikes every phase. That's why the boss is here as well. We can, every spike spawn, we just drag the boss on top of all these spikes and instant blast them. You know, Soul Fracture goes out. And all 3 phases are pretty much the same. Like, phase 1 is slightly different because obviously you have all CDs on pull and it lasts much less time than phase 2 and phase 3. But phase 2 and phase 3 are almost identical in this new form because you're trying to kill him around the time the blizzard is coming out. So in 25 seconds here, you want to kill him. But you'll see in both scenarios, in every single phase, we're stopping DPS on Kel'Thuzad. You'll see here, like, we're DPSing him. He's at 10%. We stop DPS here. Everyone stops on the boss, and everyone goes out and kills the tank ads. And we just wait. We just wait until the tank ads are dead. We're just waiting. When blizzard starts, we'll kill him. But here he's starting blizzard. We just kill him so we don't have to deal with it, right? It's a bit of a boring fight. The coordination is all in timing your damage both in the phase so you don't transition at a bad time, and then in the intermissions so again you don't transition at a bad time. So there's a lot of stop DPS. The most you can do here as a tank really is just maximize cleave. Abominations really don't do damage to you either. Like, this is a very, very low tank damage fight. You're not taking much at all. The main thing you can do here is just position a little decently so your DPS aren't cleaving. This was unfortunate, and we couldn't really do anything about that, so we just yell at the downstairs group, don't stop damage, just kill your guy. And we are able to transition pretty well there. I think just barely, yeah, just barely, but that's okay. And this phase is literally the exact same as the second KT phase. And then honestly, like, I don't know, the last phase is weird. I'll fast forward to it. But literally, this was the first time we ever got to the last phase, and the boss just died. It's a weird fight. That's for sure. Sorry. So we kill him just around the blizzard timing. This is our last intermission. Same deal. We pull the abominations together on top of these reavers. We'll leave as soon as the reavers get low-ish, just so they don't die. Here we go. Get my kick, and then I'll go to the X Reaver to finish him off. And this phase, of course, the downstairs group is almost in full stop mode, just because the guy has half the HP as he normally does, right? So they've got to wait until we're done. We tell them we're good. They come up. Everyone's alive. Top lust. Only one tank really needs to tank the boss in this phase. There's no tank buster in this phase. The only thing that does happen in this phase, of course, is there is a spawn of banshees and an A-bomb, and so the other tank can just pick up that A-bomb. Here, I pick it up and just bring it on top of the bottom. You don't need to hit it at all. It's not really the focus, but as you can see, like, KT is just dying. He is just dying. But yeah, not really much at all from a tank's perspective on this fight, really. You know, it's pretty straightforward for tanks, and not too much of a difference, honestly, between heroic and mythic. But that does wrap up this video, guys, leaving only Sylvanas for the last video, which should hopefully be out in the near future. So be sure you subscribe to the channel to be notified when that gets posted. Aside from that, if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop a comment down below, and I'll do my best to answer. Or you can check me out on my Twitch channel at Tactics, ask me there, and I'll stream high Mythic plus keys there, and of course, Mythic rating from a Guardian Druid's perspective, so that if that interests you, feel free to check it out. That is it for me, though. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.